Hey now, everybody. Welcome to the show. I am Simple Jack from Nation 30. Today, we are going to discuss failed mergers. I think everybody has seen or been a part of something like that. So, we're going to go around the room and kind of collectively take a look at some of the stories. Before we get into it, let me introduce who we've got here today. We've got Kitschy, Lumberg, and Matty D. So let me go ahead and just kind of set the stage. So failed mergers, it can be kind of subjective. We really, as everybody knows, as mergers happen, as a nation kind of starts to have low activity, you get a group, maybe two, three, or even four nations come together. The excitement, the anticipation, you get the activity level back up and everyone's able to start to compete with the uh, cross nation events and start to be competitive again. So the way that I particularly measure a failed merger is after you have a merge and you have that enthusiasm, you still struggle with some of the events in the cross nation events. So let's kind of go around the room. I know that Lumberg just started his merge, and Maddie has a merge as well, but he's got some stories from some of the other nations that he's worked closely with. Maddie, do you want to kind of dig into some of that right now? You up there, Maddie?
Oh, can you hear me?
Yep.
All right. Sorry. Yeah, so the 500s just got, a ton of merges, and, the vast majority of them were pretty rough, to say the least. We were expecting to have quite a few little mega nations out of the deal, and, they all kind of fizzled out. One nation in particular was 581, which everybody knows Big Boss. He was that original. I wouldn't say original, but he was the one that went really excessive in the 500s with that ridiculous battle power level. So everybody kind of knew who he was.
That's right. I
And
remember that. So that guy just totally left the game. Is that right?
yeah, what happened is it was about a month before merger. Some personal stuff came up, and he kind of stopped playing the game for the most part. But that nation also had two very, very strong other C-38s. One of them was Boss 2, which was his buddy, who was a melee city, and then there was a guy named Punisher, who was a really strong C-38. And, Boss kind of left. They got a very favorable merge with, let's see, 569 and 571, and they picked up a couple other really strong C-38s. And on paper, looking at them, we were like, well, okay, this is a really, really scary nation. And Trash Panda, who is now the R5 of kind of the nation and that main alliance, gave me a little write up and basically said, broke down kind of what happened. It all really started with Boss leaving because there was just a lot of hype around that player. And the pre-merger talks were pretty civil. They were really easy. They decided that, the nation they were going to go to, that was really easy. The map was divided up. Everything was just looking perfect. All the big spenders and the most active players would go to the main alliance as they should to be contenders in every event. There was they didn't put any kind of limitations on the number of farms in the nation as long as the T4 rules were enforced. So it seems like it was going to be very, very peaceful. One thing they did do is say, we're only going to allow 3 top alliances. Everybody else is going to be a farm. And that may have been part of their downfall as well, because when you merge 3 nations worth of people, they're not all going to fit into 3 alliances.
Yeah.
But he said the first issue was the pre-merge, and in the talking phase, a rogue alliance really didn't like any of the rules and the number of R4 positions they were going to get, and they just kept wanting more and more out of the deal. And they branched off at the very beginning of the physical merge, and that just caused all kinds of territory issues because they had already divided up the map. And it was at that point that's when the fighting began, and the whole nation just went into civil war, and it continued for months. And people were just zeroed on all sides aside from their strongest cities.
So let me stop you real quick. So what you're telling me is, at the onset of the merge, they decided they wanted to have one alliance, and then everybody else was a farm.
No, that they wanted three
Oh, okay,
alliances.
okay.
Three total.
Okay.
But whenever you're doing, three nations worth of people, that's
Yeah.
a lot more than three alliances.
Yeah.
And just my nation in particular, we started out with five, and we quickly realized we needed a sixth for those overflow people.
So
So,
one of the things that we'll probably hear a lot about, and as we go around the room, one of the biggest issues that I think makes a merger fail are the egos, right? So did you see or hear about any of the egos that was going on? What nation was that again? 581?
it's 581. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's the egos generally are from the top players, and they're very tip top players were all on board. It was, their C34s and lower that were really given the issues.
So it really was kind of a revolt versus an ego. Because the way that I always see an ego screwing everything up is when you have, like, take for instance, one of those top three alliances, and one of the three didn't really like the way it was situated. So they constantly push against the grain and constantly make issues for everybody else. So that's
Mhm.
typically the way I see it.
Yeah, and then they started off being very accommodating to farmers and stuff, and they have, because they just had so many whales, that they allowed RSS dealers and whatnot, and they had friends, and that just caused a lot of issues when they started getting rid of RSS sellers. And basically because things started falling apart, all of their big spenders are super competitive with a little bit of splash of narcissism. And that's in Trash Panda's words. They hate losing, they get extremely frustrated, and they just kind of give up.
Wow.
And right now, Trash Panda is still around. Boss 2 kind of plays. Boss 1's completely gone. Punisher, who was their other big guy, he plays, but I don't really see him too much in their rankings anymore. So it's what their thing is now is like, okay, this merger was trash. Let's just focus on the next one. And it seems really early for them to be doing that, but I think that that's giving them a little sense of hope, that maybe the next time will be better. But as we all know, it's a crapshoot, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I never knew exactly how mergers came about, but I know that, and I don't know if it's because of the way natural attrition happens, but it takes time. If you get a recent merge, I would not expect another one for at least 8 months. And we're Nation 30, we're already over a year and a half without a merge, so we've been aching for one. And from what I hear, it's still a ways away. So we're actually trying to change that. But I wouldn't think that anybody would get a merge within 8 months of their previous merge. But I don't know, Lumberg, have you seen anything like that where people get merged? Well, aside from the Lock Nations.
I would say it's pretty rare to get a merge before a year, right? So, a lot of this data is, it depends on what nation, but it's really, you're looking at, if you just got a merger and you're hoping for another one, you're stuck with it for at least a year, I'd say. So I'd go even beyond your estimate of 8 months.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. I guess it really just depends on how much you murder your nation, because if you get your nation and down and just constantly kill everybody and your BP is really low, they may make an exception. I don't know. I've never heard of it happening, but they did get a favorable merger from the beginning and essentially got to pick one nation. So you never know with these guys that they may do it to try to lure, boss back to the game or something like that. That they could use that as leverage and say, hey, he's not playing. He's mad. There's no merge. Merge us again.
Yeah, I know from talking to some VIP reps that unique characters do play a part, right? So, Big Boss or whatever his name is, he would definitely be a unique character. If he drops out, I mean, I'm not going to say that's the end all be all for another determination for a merger, but it's definitely a factor when a nation loses some big whales. It's gonna be somewhat of a factor, I think.
Yeah, and Boss was actually funding the Boss 2 city. So he was double buying the store.
Wow. Interesting. So
So
Lumberg, sorry, go
I
ahead.
could see them getting a little preferential treatment, but only time will tell.
Yeah. Lumberg, fill us in. How's your nation merge going? I see that World 285 is doing extremely well in global conquest. So I'm interested to hear how you guys are doing.
Yeah, I'd be happy to share. So, I'll give some of my thoughts, and I would say, going through this merger, and spending many hours and kind of just negotiating and talking to the other leaders to kind of get just common ground, trust established. I would say that everybody is basically just one out of control conversation or argument away from a bad merger, right? So I will set the stage with that. So a lot of it is, it's almost like you have to kind of put above everything else, like, let's not have an early conflict, like, despite how much you might hate the other person, hate his guts, hate her guts. You really have to put that aside and put egos aside, which is difficult because this is a game that, let's face it, it attracts egos, right? Camel monetizes, advertises it for people that really want to be number one. We all want to win, right? I love winning. Like, oh, we're on top of GC, right? It won't last. Come on, let's not kid ourselves. But everybody likes that feeling, and things are good when your nation's doing good. When your nation's not doing good, guess what happens? You could just be one step away from a bad merger. So I'll give a little bit of context for us. So we had three different nations merge in. Each one did things differently, right? So just getting used to rules is tough. If you've played by a certain set of rules for over a year or 2 years, you're used to that set of rules. And anything different, I mean, most of the people, the average age of the person that plays this game is actually pretty older. Like, it's not a game that attracts a lot of young people because it needs a lot of spending and older people have money. If I get too preachy, feel free to interrupt me at any point in time.
It's all good.
I don't think that stopped you guys in the past. So what usually happens is people don't like that change and they revolt. And you don't really need to pay attention to nation chat. I would say if you're close to a bad merger, if you fail a merger, just turn off nation chat, because that's just a sounding board for anybody or any troll. And really don't pay attention to cities that don't say what they want to say from their own city, right? Because if you're confident about what you want to say, don't make it anonymous. Don't create a farm, a level 10 farm, a level 12 farm, and then go rant. So just turning that off might be helpful in having a healthier merge. I'm going to give a little bit of context into our merge. So we had our merge. We had many talks. I mean, I got on a conference call with a couple of the other leaders, and it took some time to build that trust. And you have to be forgiving of mistakes. Everybody made mistakes against the Void versus 52 that we had. We almost won it, but we lost. We could have imploded, right? We could have started pointing fingers that, hey, look, if you didn't do this battle, we would have won. And we stopped doing that. And honestly, the best way that I could do that is I just stepped away for the game for a week. So that made it easier. Time heals all wounds. If it gets bad, just walk away. And then we kind of came back and made a show of it in Global Conquest, right? So now we're back to winning. Things are good again, and we'll get along. Do we solve our problems? Absolutely not. Will we have more problems? Yes. But I will share one story. But before I do that, I'll let somebody else comment.
I'm good.
So I was talking about, I think you guys may have known that, 255, which merged a little bit sooner than us, I'm not giving away any confidential information here, but I think there was some drama around that merge, different VIPs requesting different nations and kind of crossing hairs, and really they ended up getting what may be, it's subjective, but maybe perceived as a less favorable merge than some of the other combinations. And, I think shortly after that, there was a civil war. So that went from a, potentially bad merger based on the length of the time of the Civil War. I think they ended the Civil War. So to me, that 1 month time is the perfect kind of length of a civil war to establish the pecking order, to establish that, okay, we've fought it out. We realized who we need to listen to, and then let's move on and get back together again, right? So to me, if you are going to have a civil war, make it quick, fast, and then get back on track. So that would be my other piece of kind of story from 255. I think that's you cut the fat and you get back on track. So that's. What are your thoughts on what, if you are going to have a failed merger and how you recover from it? What is the appropriate length of civil war?
What is the appropriate length to carry on a civil war?
Yes.
So, in our thoughts, if you're ready for a merge, you might as well civil war on, because you need to trim the nation anyways, right? You need to kind of work through a lot of, I'm just speaking from Nation 30. So over time, and this is like a year and 6 months, there's a lot of pent up frustration between alliances. They still work together, and there's still a lot of success there, but over time there's so much pent up frustration because everybody does things differently that you naturally go to war. And we're actually in a civil war right now, and it's getting pretty good. But now that we're in that phase where we've already accepted, look, we need to just have our merge. We need to concentrate on lowering our BP. We don't try to really stop any kind of civil war right now. But if we were still super competitive, then that's when we would say, look, we need to put this aside and we need to keep going forward. But so I think it depends. But in our instance, we've been ready for a merge for a few months now. So we don't try to put a brakes on anything.
So your goal really isn't so much as a civil war as in a civil exercise program to get rid of fat.
Yeah. I mean, we're gonna let everybody kill everybody, because let's face it, in a civil war, usually what happens is are the people that can't shield or can't afford to shield, or just aren't active enough to shield. They're the ones that get killed, right? So in a lot of ways, that's kind of what you want anyway. So, because in our opinion, what you want to do when you prepare for a merge is you get a core of your heavy spenders, your heavily active players, protect them, and then just start purging the rest.
Yeah, your goal for Civil War is, I mean, honestly, to make players quit.
Yeah.
I mean, so that's how long it should last, until they quit. Now, if you guys can come to an agreement and say, okay, we'll bring you into the fold, then it can end. But if they're not going to get on board, you just keep killing.
Yeah, and that's where you start to run into a lot of the egos, because what will happen, and this is happening in our nation, where when you do allow all that killing to go on, all the guys that are really the bad guys in your nation, they're going to be martyrs. They're going to be the guys that say, I'm here protecting the farmers. I'm the one who cares about you guys. Whoever the aggressor is, they're the bad guys that are just trying to not let you play your game and all that stuff. So you really see an interesting dynamic that it's if you can avoid it, that would be good. But usually that's the role that the bad guys in the nation take up. Hey, I see we got Johnny Ringo here. Welcome.
Hola.
How's it going?
Yeah. Yeah, Maddie brought me here. It was good, man. It was good. We just came off a good little round of our third for global, and it was good. But now I was talking to Maddie the other night about a merger because I kind of had a weird one, but a good one myself, and I definitely agree with a lot of things y'all are saying and have said before, especially when it comes to mergers. So I started off in 386, and we had this one guy who I won't even mention his name. He quit and left to another world, and now he's doing it there. And he's going to expect the same results. But I think whenever it comes to killing players that basically just can't cut the mustard, and that's kind of what we all, talk towards whenever we're saying, hey, if we're going to merge for this or merge for that, what's your helping hand going to be? And some of it can be very little, some of it could be very small. Like we just did, I stole something from Matt's playbook the other night, and I never thought about, just because I don't pay attention to it that much. But I was just like, hey, why don't we just get all these farmers to turn off their equipment and this, that, and the other, and their Titans and or not the Titans, but the zombies and stuff like their farm, and and that happened overnight. But we had this guy who was a really, really huge spender. He was a RAM equivalent, if you will, and he just kind of like smoked out a bunch of people, and then we got merged. Whenever the merger was announced, I looked out and saw like who was making the most effort to kind of create something like a new good group. And it was Barry, and I reached out to him and I was like, hey, I've got myself and two other people, we want to do this. And he's like, all right, cool, and we did that, and obviously we merged, and I'm with Day now, and we've been doing really good ever since then. But then you kind of get to that weird brick wall of conversation or agreement, of cooperation, if you will, and we finally kind of got over that and was able to coordinate some stuff for global in the two main alliances in 385 the other night, and for global, and it turned out like really, really well. And before we did that, probably maybe about like 2 or 3 months ago, we did have like this big argument where one player did this one thing, and it was kind of like this stalemate between like the two big alliances with each other. And we kind of had like I wouldn't call it like a civil war. I'd call it like a couple SOS throws, if you will, back and forth. But it was able to like calm down and resolve very quickly, because it was just like, okay, cool. What are we going to do? We're going to do this. We're going to do that. Like and I think the leaders of both alliances kind of saw, hey, if we do it this way, then it's just going to create this type of nation, and we're not trying to do that. And then it kind of came to like a weird like Mexican standoff, for the better, if you will. But yeah, to be honest, like, and then whenever you are trying to kill off players, like Matt's saying, it's like, it sucks at times, but like, it's to what everybody says, like it is a game, and it is a play to play game. Like if they can't do it to a certain extent, then they can't do it at all, and should just hang it up. I mean, I know myself and other players in my alliance have, not a huge amount, but given some coins and whatnot to players in our alliance who are free to play, and they're still around, and because they're active in Void and whatnot. But yeah, you can't keep friends around forever and expect an effective nation at such a scale.
Yeah,
So that
385 started off
I'm just
split,
a
right?
very thing.
Go ahead, man.
Yeah. We did. Yeah.
So one of the biggest things that I've found is a problem, as you go through this, and I'm interested to hear, Johnny, how well the communication is with with all the leaders amongst the different alliances. But one of the biggest issues that I've found that usually leads to a failed merge is you have to put that cutoff line for players, and you have to basically tell a specific group of players you're basically useless, right? You're not like in Nation 30. If your long range is less than 1,000, you're pretty much a farm. So, telling players, because getting to 1,000 long range is not always easy, and you've got those fringe players that are effective, but they can't quite reach that. So it's difficult to get that cutoff point to where you're useful, and the nation wants to keep you around. And as soon as you start to go into specific groups and tell them, hey guys, it was fun, you might want to look at going into some newer worlds or something, but you guys are just showing up every day and just logging in to farm, and it's killing our nation. But Johnny, I'm interested to hear what kind of talks did your leaders have? Did they have good conversations in that nation?
Yeah, I mean, no, I think they did. And I definitely don't want to take anything away from Barry since he's not here. I believe he is heading back into work right now, but
Barry.
because like I said, we just got off round 3. But I do know, like I've never seen somebody like so active and proactive, if you will, in a merger talk, and then post merger, if you will. And of course, out of 1,000 good ideas, you're going to have 999 people that don't like your ideas. And I mean, he's a very reasonable person amongst a bunch of other leaders in our alliance. And I think a lot of it was maybe the intensity that we wanted to do. Like hey, this person sucks, boot him out, type of thing. Not saying like that's what he wanted to do, but it was basically just like, hey, let's make a super alliance. We can definitely do this. And then the other part, you kind of have the because in our other sister alliance, if you will, is it's a lot of Korean people, Japanese, and Chinese people, and so then you have like the dialogue, the context, the language barrier, everything. So then you kind of have to like fight through all that. And the only footing that I had to stand on in that was because some of these people I helped with our previous nation, because of some said guy, if you will. But no, like, Barry hustled his ass off. And I think, he just at a point kind of just got like tired and was like, hey, if y'all want something, let me know. He did make every effort to, like our first global, like Woody's here, he definitely remembers whenever, they wanted to kind of take a break for, pre their merger. And Ram was like, hey, I'm gonna do this. Like, bro, we showed up as an alliance. I don't know how many other people were there from other alliances, but we showed up as Day, and Ram, smoked us in global, and we were like, this is trash, dude. This is garbage, But if we would have done it with, a few other people from other alliances, from the merge, then we would have done a lot better,
Yeah,
Win, lose, draw, maybe, definitely would have been different. But it takes a lot of patience, and I think what's working in our favor now is that kind of maybe everybody sees like the writing on the wall, as well as hey, we're not just hitting your players, just for no reason, and we're actually just trying to do good and trying to win. And also, some of their players are just quitting, because they're tired of non-movement, if you will. Like, hey, if I'm in this alliance and our leaders are not making moves, we're going to quit, so that's kind of what's happening right now, but no, like, as far as coordination and effort and, lining things up, I mean, Barry and his group, pre-merge, I've never seen a better effort,
Yeah, I've heard
and,
that.
And we did have a couple of days or whatnot that, like, hey, we bubbled because of this, that, and the other.
I heard that Barry is taking control of that, so that's good. Good on Barry. Hey, Kitchi, I heard you had some stories. You want to share some of them?
Regarding failed merge,
Yeah.
yeah, so the merge that I went through was 320, 310, and 297, and that was March last year, I believe. And same as others, as we've all heard, like the first few months, they're all sweet, and everyone's cooperative, and everyone wants to make it work, and everyone's excited, and there's an influx of active players again. So doing events are awesome, but I think the issue that I found, that I couldn't actually wrap my head around was the we had different ideologies, if you can say that. Like like in 310, we had all farms T4 and below, but the other nations, they didn't do that. So coming into a merge like that with two other nations that didn't believe in T4 below farms, it was really hard, because the pushback was harder because it's two nations against one. So I found that an issue at the start. And then communication barriers, how they communicated within their alliance, how we communicated within our nation as well was different. They communicated in game, because there's a translator. We communicated outside of the game through Discord, but that's also because we had a translator there. So just differences in communication styles as well. That was not pleasant. So I can't say that it's a failed merge with 320, because I left before. I couldn't take the differences in opinions, so I left before they actually failed.
So
Because from what I'm hearing,
what you're saying at
is
the
they're
top
starting.
alliances is that nobody could agree on how to kind of move forward. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So top one and top two alliances had differences in opinions with how to enforce rules. Like, they agree to certain rules, and then when it comes to enforcing them, they can't enforce them. And when some other alliances enforced them, then they were up at arms. It's like, but we discussed it and you agreed to it. So I don't know where the issue is coming from. So it's just back and forth like that every day for months. It was just painful.
So how are they
Really
doing now?
painful. Um, from what I heard, they've lost, I think, Void, two Voids, or one Void, one Frenzy. They're still doing great in the Global Conquest, but again, it depends on which nations you're paired with. But from what I've heard, they have internal turmoil. But they've always had internal turmoil when I was there between 1 and 2. It's like, it's not an actual civil war, but it's more like a cold war. And you know that one person who just does one mistake, and it's all out civil war. So like,
Wow.
if they can make it work between themselves, then kudos to them. But I can't. I yeah. I gave that up.
Yeah.
I think you and Lumberg both said it. Like, you're one comment or one fight away from,
Yeah.
everything blowing up.
Yeah.
And for my merger in particular, that petrifies me, just because of all the effort that I've put in. And our nation right now is at complete peace. Nobody's fighting, nobody's arguing. And I'm just waiting on Archduke Ferdinand to get assassinated, and it all come crashing down.
Yeah.
I think that comes through. I don't know. I think it's in all relationships, even in games. Like you get that nice honeymoon period where everything is flowing. You're agreeing with each other. You want to compromise to make it work, but the quirks that you liked about other alliances over time they become irritation. So it's like, okay, it's like it's that again. So and between language barriers, communication styles, it's just too much work.
Oh, it's a lot of work.
Mm,
The translation with certain languages is really rough, and
mm.
I'll apologize to a lot of Russian players, simply because what they post in Nation chat does not translate well, and it makes me want to smack the crap out of them. And it's not their fault. I've actually had somebody.
Physically.
Yeah, no, physically, yeah. And I've had somebody like, I'll paste them the actual text and they'll translate it, themselves instead of going through the automatic translator. And it's a completely different meaning. And I'm like, how many people did I burn because the translator sucks? Like I
Well,
do
I
feel
think
bad.
I think, and so, from what I've heard from other players, like from 357, there are certain translations, like emoji translations, that if you put an emoji when it translates to another language, it means something else. So that supposedly starts civil wars, especially with non-English speaking players. So I don't know if it's true, but that's what I've heard before.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Hmm.
Hey, Woody. So, what are the
Yeah,
stories? Oh,
I
sorry.
think there's.
Go
Sorry,
ahead.
go ahead.
I was just going to
No,
introduce
you.
Woody.
No, you go ahead. No, you good.
What's going on with 373?
I think Woody's at work, so he's just listening in. He may
Oh,
not be
okay.
able to
Gotcha.
comment.
Gotcha.
Um,
Okay. Go ahead,
I'm
Johnny.
gonna add in
Oh.
with a couple.
Woody,
Oh, sorry, go
Woody's
ahead,
like,
Johnny.
I saw gifts here. Somebody dropped. But no, yeah, with like the language thing, I definitely think that's a thing.
Gotcha.
Hold on 1 second. Sorry. Okay, I'm back on. But no, yeah, definitely. Whenever you converse with somebody, of a, you know, Korean, Asian, Chinese, Japanese, there's definitely a thing there because, like, their context, and their, verbs, things like that, like they don't use them, the way we do. So, um, it's horrible with communication. Not always bad, not always good. But you know, you definitely got to put some legwork in there. I mean, I've got some that I've been playing with for 2 or 3 years now. I think I've been playing for at least two, maybe three. I don't know, but and I've had to kind of finally envelop into, hey, we'll do this translate app, whichever it be, whether it be Viber, or a Line app. And even then, sometimes still, there's still a gap there because, like I said, like, their verbs, adjectives, things like that, like they don't use them the same way we do. So it's crazy to communicate. But if they think you and or remember you're a nice person, they're gonna be like, okay, cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
This guy's cool. We'll help him if it makes sense. So
Gotcha.
it's definitely a patience game with some of them.
you gotta make sure that you work the room and keep everybody happy. I definitely hear that. Lumberg, you said you wanted to add something.
Yeah.
Yes, it's time for me to get preachy again, but I'm going to share a couple of things. So, Johnny, you mentioned that global went well. I think if you're close to or in the middle of a failed merger or, a bad merger, global is a great way to kind of, call a truce, have a common enemy and just go and wreck stuff, right? So if you can kind of coordinate and bring people together in global, that's a great way to kind of build up that camaraderie. I'm going to share a couple of thoughts on, the communication and just the different languages and the different cultures in this game. So right, there's a couple of predominant alliances just based on, if you've played this game for a couple of months, you'll figure that out. One of the things that I think is really important, like if you're trying to get out of the vicious cycle of bad merger or not willing to work with each other, you really need to kind of try to form an international alliance. And that idea is it's not going to solve itself in the next merger, right? So if you think about it, people that will speak the same language will normally gravitate towards each other. So if you are already have bad feelings, let's say towards another alliance where you can't communicate because of language, that's going to continue even into the new merger, right? So some of the ways that you can kind of do that is really by some of these other apps and bringing in some people and some moderators and some in-between diplomats, if you will. And that's really what we've found success in, is that when we try to, let's say, this podcast is predominantly English speaking, right? So you're not going to get all of us have a similar mindset because we speak the same language. But really, if you find things to unite it. So we're united by our common sense of perversion, right? So we're an alliance of perverts, right? So that's universal. There's Japanese perverts, there's Korean perverts, right? So we joke around, we kid around. So there are things that you'll find out that you're more similar, but you really have to get past that barrier, which is tough to do once you're already in that format. But almost I feel like this game is all about mediation, right? So if you can do mediation and conflict resolution, you will be successful in this game. It is critical to your nation as a success to do mediation.
Yeah.
Lumber, can I ask you, on your nation was pretty well, like a well-oiled machine before merger, but the other two nations, you said that they were in civil war. After they merged with you guys, didn't you kind of broker, some deals and kind of, I don't want to say fix their nation, but you had two nations that were at civil war, but you managed to bring them all together.
Well, no, I don't want to take too much credit. So they fixed their civil war even before we merged, right?
Okay.
What remained is some bad feelings, right? So the problem with those bad feelings is those remain, and the new world that we want to create kind of gets past that. Our world motto is that you put alliance over self and nation over alliance, but that's difficult to do if you have bad feelings, like serious bad feelings towards these other people, right? So there is still some issues that will continue, but you want to kind of work around those and just try to find what is more important to go around that, right? So there's still some conflict, there's still some animosity, but that will continue. But I think the best thing is people will like to win, right? So if you can get everybody together on the same page and win, you'll get past that, and time heals all. So I'll say that again. Like if you can just keep them apart from a little bit, they will stop hating each other.
Yeah, one of the things that I noticed is like when you go into a merge, our World 30 had 4 worlds come together, and I knew right off the bat there was one world, I won't mention them, but they always had civil war, and you can bet that after our merge, 99% of our current civil wars are because of that one world. It's like if you have a world that comes in that has poor leadership, their first inclination is to just go to war. Their first reaction to anything is to go to war. And, everybody has different theories on this, but for a nation, when all you want to do is compete in cross-nation events and win, you should, obviously fight as hard as you can in those cross-nation events, but internally you should work out those differences rather than constantly killing each other. But that's just my opinion. So, Nikki, I'm glad you're here. Thanks for joining. World 52, when they merged, it wasn't too long ago. it seemed like everything went very smoothly. I mean, you guys are already, a high performing nation, and I don't really even know much about the other world you merged with. Can you talk about that?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
So it was 52, 87, and oh boy, what was the other nation? Hold on, I'm trying to remember. I know I want to. What was the nation? 68. So 68, 87, and 52. And both 87 leadership and 68 leadership wanted to um follow the rules of ED1
Yeah.
or the ED1 leadership, which is Sayes and the other people. So that's why it was like more of a successful merge because everybody had the same thought process, the same plans to work things out and just follow the rules. And I guess that's why it worked out in the end.
Yeah, I mean,
Well,
I've never heard a peep out of that nation as far as like a bad merge. I mean, it seems like right out of the gates, you guys were so smooth and highly competitive. So sorry, Maddie, go ahead.
no, I was just going to ask of, in 52, if it's not, if it wasn't really, I know it's not a failed merge. You guys are extremely competitive, but why do you guys burn 24/7? Just out of curiosity.
Because because people fail to bubble. So, and we're very competitive and we don't want to lose a void because somebody forgot to bubble. It's better be safe than sorry. So it would be better to just burn them before the enemy does or burn them beforehand. And then we have those that just want to donate points to the enemy just to make us lose. So that's why we burn them 24/7. If our shield drops or anything happens, we just go for it. Because, like I said, they want to donate the points to the enemy because they hate us.
Yeah, we had one of those. I loved it. It was so much fun.
So
Yeah.
how does it work?
Yeah,
in 50
I'd like to add to that. Go ahead.
How does it work in 52? You've got 81, and then is it Zoo or
Hob.
somebody? Hob. And then outside of that, does everybody else just get burned without question, or how does that work?
We still burn Hob, and Hob burns us. That's
Okay.
teamwork. Just because Hob has a good leadership and they have the same mentality as us. So, like, if a shield drop from our side, they will go ahead and burn the person. And if their shield drops, we go ahead and burn their person. It's teamwork, and everybody agrees to, they understand. Like, hey, I understand that you hit me because we can't lose or we don't want to lose, and they're okay with it. It's like if my shield drops in void, I'm okay if they burn me. I'm okay with it. I'd rather die by them than die by the enemy.
Yeah, for sure. Go ahead, Johnny. Sorry about that.
No, I mean, you're good. I was essentially going to kind of say the same thing. I mean, I think one of the reasons, and correct me if I'm wrong, Kitchi, but a world that old, I feel like everybody should know. And if you don't, definitely everybody makes mistakes. But hey, especially if it's like a frenzy or a void coming up, and you're not doing this and you're not doing that, like per the nation rules, then you're going to get smoked. I mean, I've finally started doing that in my nation here, just because I'm like, hey, this really sucks. Like, why am I doing this in void? And this is your quote unquote friend, So
I
I would
I
think they're doing that
I
24/7,
understand. No, no,
and I
no.
can't wait till we are.
No, I fully support that. The what Nikki said, but I think before you actually get to that stage, you have to make sure everyone is following your nation rules. That there is no exception to your nation rules. There is no. I think that's it. And one of the reasons why I left and went to 425 is 425 is like that. The nation rules is from lead god down to whoever it is. It's not, league gods off the table and everyone is, a fair game. It's not like that. So he follows the rules, everyone follows the rules. But if, your number one alliance doesn't do that, or your number two doesn't do that, then how would you get the support of the nation if your actual leaders don't actually do it? So I agree with Nikki. I'd rather be burned by someone in my nation to prevent the other nation from winning than, getting burned by someone else.
How do you guys, with multiple, we have one big alliance. So our smaller alliances are significantly weaker. But our number one alliance sets traps. If you have multiple alliances setting traps, how do you communicate that across the board so that you don't get burned just because it's a trap?
We use our, like Viber or Discord. Anytime any of our 4 alliances set up a trap, and we have the other 3 set up counterattacks for that trap, then it gets posted, and then we disseminate that information throughout. That's how we do it. I don't know how everybody else does it.
Yeah, same here. On Discord, either Hob will be like, "Hey, there's this city. We're setting a trap," and they send us a location, and we just wait for for things to happen for us to counterattack. Or yeah, basically, Hob is the one that set up baits for us.
And it really, it's kind of, you can follow the ebb and flow of Battle Frenzy or Void, to where, like, if the other nation becomes super active and they're hunting, then that's when your nation kind of gets the cue. It's like, okay, let's set up the trap. Let's get all the other alliances to set up the counter, and then, kind of wait to spring that trap. So you can kind of feel when Void is super active and when it kind of gets into a quiet stage and stuff like that. So typically,
Oh
yeah, sure.
I can say when we had our boy with Lumberg, it was like in the I'll say in the last 8 hours. It's like when things, no, the last 4 hours is when things just went crazy, right, Lumberg? We did not sleep. Nobody slept, right? We know.
I've forgotten already. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Okay, we're not talking about it then.
No, that's exactly right. I mean, it was every time we attacked, there was somebody there to counter, right? So it's almost like you lose your mind from watching who's doing what, and then
Oh my god,
there was
our eyes
a time
were
where
burning.
I think people were everywhere. Like, we moved to 285, they're there. We moved to 52, they're there. It's like, are you tracking us? Like,
Oh yeah.
So I gotta share with the
Yeah.
listeners real quick, because this story is kind of epic. So Lumberg in World 285 and Nikki in World 52, they just had Void, and it was huge, right? They're 2 very successful nations, and I don't know what the point spread was, but at the beginning, like the first 4 stages, it might have been like 1.5 billion or something. It was big, but I heard through the grapevine that Sayez said, no matter what that point spread is, I'm going to keep recruiting until we get even for the kill phase, right? So I think,
Well, it was more he was warning Lumberg, hey, don't recruit too much or I'm gonna push. Because technically you guys will be wasting your speeds.
yeah,
And he did it just to not to make the point get too big, but just to be enough for us, for both sides to look for targets.
yeah, and I mean, the point that I was making is that it was funny because he just made the playing field even, like, right? He was like, okay, if we're gonna do Void, we're gonna go in. You're not gonna go in there with more than 1 billion or whatever. I don't know what the point spread was, but what was funny is, well, not funny for Lumberg, but Lumberg sent an image. I don't know how many minutes were left, maybe 20 minutes or something, and 285 was on top, and everybody was like, wow, that's cool. And I don't know, I guess 52 turned it on, and they just you guys killed a ton and ended up winning that one. So it was That was probably one of the better Void stories I've ever heard.
But at the same time, because he had to do that, it kind of just shows the the disadvantage of why commander points take over what Void is. Just because he had to recruit just to make the gap smaller, is just like, how do I say it? It determines what the end result is going to be for Void, kind of,
Yeah. Yeah, I got it.
I'll just
Mm.
add a little bit. So, I like Saez. He's one of the smartest, strongest players in the game. And yeah, he did kind of give us a heads up that, look, don't go crazy. Don't try to win this in phase 1 and 4. He wanted a good Void. And the point spread was 3 billion. So,
Holy cow.
it was pretty high. And I did tell people that, stop recruiting. Like, I believe Saez when he says that. Let's say, if Maddie said that or Nikki said that, I wouldn't believe them. But when Saez says it, I do believe him.
Are you kidding me? I've got a great one, and
No, I'm just kidding. So, but it wasn't a great Void in terms of big battles. I mean, I think 219 and 208 had an amazing Void. Like I think
they had the fun Void. It's not fair.
Like they had, I don't know, like 100 billion points between the two of them. So those are like the high firework Void. Ours was intense. Like nobody slept, but it was like fighting over, mines and breadcrumbs. But it was intense, but not from a score perspective, because Saez really wanted us to fight ED1, but we know better than that. There's just, it's like David and Goliath. We weren't gonna be lured into that, but it was a good comeback by them. Well deserved victory.
Wow.
I will say one thing: ED1 and 52 has to fight 2 Voids at the same time. They have to fight their
Bleeders,
anti-nation people from giving away points sooner than we can find them, and they have to find our bubble drops sooner than we could find them. So it's kind of a double war front.
Funny enough, this Void was actually, I didn't see much of SS1 bleeding, because usually that's our bleeders. It was more of our poor little hub. Their bubbles kept dropping, and it's like, what is going on? It was a bad Void for hub.
Oh, was it? Wow.
Yeah, it was mostly hub. It was like, no, I don't know what was going on. It's like, what is going on? They never failed this much, because they're pretty good. It was just this Void. I don't know. It was like, I don't know what was going on.
Yeah, it happens.
Yeah.
Wow.
Continue.
Yeah, but that was a bad lag day as well. That Void.
Oh,
From what I can remember. Yeah.
Do you guys see the style got hit and zeroed?
Ooh.
Or Japanese bet style?
Ooh.
Style gun?
Oh no, he did?
He did get hit.
Oh no.
He got zeroed and hit because he couldn't connect back to the game. The game kept crashing on him.
Oh shit.
That's why you don't see no new video of the boys.
She said, "Oh no."
I hope
kind of sad. I hope he makes a Void video.
That sucks. Oh,
this past Void, I didn't get zeroed, but I got hit for the first time, and it almost broke my soul. It's because my game crashed right as I went to shield, and when I logged back on, I was already it was already underway, and I was like, my God. And then of course it was the other nation's strongest player with an SOS, exterminate and slaughter, and I'm like, lordy. I only lost 90K. I lost 90K, but it hurt my soul.
Well, we love.
Yeah.
We.
Yep.
What's wrong, Kitchi?
No, we liked our Void because we had.
Go ahead, Johnny.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Kitchi.
No, I was saying, kind of agreeing with Matt. Like this last Void, I probably for like an hour and a half, I was like, "Hey, I'm done with the game right now." Like I couldn't do anything, and I was like, "Hey, I'm a target right now." That's kind of it. I was like, anything I do is going to be a potential target because my GD phone is not operating correctly and Camel sucks. So
Well, mine happened the next day. It was just a standard run of the mill crash.
Yeah. I haven't had that many crashes lately, but it's still an occurrence. And I don't remember if it was this void, but like the last two voids, the beginning is really, really bad. I mean, you can't resolve any cities. You can't, I mean, nobody can do anything really. And I think I remember one of our vets saying that players were losing millions of troops because of it. So it's almost to the point where in the beginning of Void, you probably don't want to have those huge attacks because you just never know how it's going to work out.
Well, in this void in particular, the first 30 minutes were normal lag, which still sucked, but there was about an hour time period, about 30 to 45 minutes after reset, that it was horrible for everyone. Like there were alerts, like red alerts, like your city was being attacked, just randomly popping up. You would lose everything on your map screen. You'd reset. 2 minutes later, it would happen again. I mean, it was really bad.
Yeah.
When the game gets like that, I just avoid the game. I'll just bubble
Yeah.
for a whole day and I just don't play. I just
Yeah,
wait till like everything calms down.
Yeah, that's why I told everybody just shield up. It's not worth losing troops, and I packed it
Yeah.
up until later that night. So,
It's just not safe to play like that.
Sure.
which sucks because I mean, Void is it's most people's favorite event. I would say,
Yeah.
not everyone's, and you only get it one day a month. And if you take out the very first bit of it, that's the most fun part. And it's a bad time for everything to go to shit.
Yeah.
It's
Well, the
like a lot of
first-
people play right at reset. Like
Yep.
most players just start and go and start fighting, but once lag hits, it's like, well, I want to keep playing, but you can't really because you're getting there's a risk of you getting hit back or a risk of you getting kicked out with no bubble and no way for you to come back in. And that's what happened to Style Gun. He had no bubble. He had no way to go back in, and then he got hit like 3 times, like completely. He got completely wiped out.
Yes.
All right, guys. I think we're at the top of the hour. Anything else we wanted to kind of discuss or bring up about failed mergers?
We did have one question in chat a little bit ago.
Okay.
It says, "Are most issues fights between larger alliances, or just farmers and small alliances that don't want to follow the rules?"
In
It's
our
both.
Yeah, in our world, it's both. I mean, in the larger alliances, it's all about egos. It's all about one alliance wanting to execute the rules in a specific way, and the other alliance wanting to do it the other way. But then it's also the small farms that, and I hear this a lot, is players will come in and they'll just say, we have a right to play, blah, 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 blah. And, whatever. And I think Maddie or somebody or everybody really echoes this is the fact that we have the right to kill you. So, and that's why that we have the nation rules, is that the rules aren't here for us to be tyrants. The rules are here for us to exist peacefully together. So follow the rules. But to answer that question, in our world, it's both. I mean, the arguments are both.
In 52, our only issue is SS1. Even though they do manage to, that's why we all have bubbles on, because they do manage to zero some of us because they have like 31 to 46 players. So that's why we stay in bubble. I would rather have them. It's okay for them to fight us. They have the right to. They have the right to, and we have the right to fight back because we have zero most of them, but they have managed to zero some of us because people don't learn and they don't want to bubble and they forget to bubble and they forget that we have an enemy. But I would rather have them to just focus on our civil war instead of, oh, let's make them lose. Let's make 52 lose.
Yeah, that's pretty
like
low.
I would
That's really
rather
low.
have them listen. Like if I get you hate us, you have the right to zero us. You have the right to fight us, but have some respect. Like we're all in this together. At least don't bleed to the enemy. Let's just put your shield and then just fight us. But don't do that. Like don't bleed to the enemy. Because you know how expensive Boyd can be for some people.
Yeah.
Because it's part of the game where you're having so much fun. Let's spend more for some speed, and it gets expensive. And then for them to just wanting to lose on purpose, it's just like it's terrible because like I can't forgive them.
Well,
on that.
that's the thing, is they have no real way to get at you. So that is their
Yeah.
one way of retribution or payback. Is,
But
you
like
know
I
what?
said, they have managed to zero some of us. Like that's
Yeah.
still a way, It would be nice for them to like stop and think about it. But no, they hate us so much that they will just do that. They just have so much hate for us.
Oh well, looking at it from that perspective, I think they're just doing that because they don't feel like they belong in 52 anymore. So if they don't feel like they don't belong, then why
Well,
would
yeah,
they
but
help
doing
you?
this makes them even worse. Like it's not helping the issue. Like you're just making us hate you at the same time and not forgive you and not give you. Let's say you turn the leaf around and you want to make a change. When merge comes, we're not gonna forgive you. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
that's
if everybody knew what you are, nobody's gonna accept you unless you get the other trash from the other world.
Yeah, that's
Hmm.
an unforgivable, thing, is feeding points to the other nation. There's no coming back from that in my book. We had a player that did that, and that was it. He was like our top, like our third highest player, and he started doing that. There was just no coming back from it.
Yeah.
Matt,
But
like
that's 52.
in like BP or like in your alliance or something. I'm assuming it's like BP.
Yeah, BP officers, everything. He was a
Yeah.
really, really
Yeah, I
strong
would respect
player.
him as well too. Yeah, I would respect him as well too, or at least would have petitioned for it, depending on his to mine, if you will.
I have a question for Nikki. When was the last time you guys tried to reconcile things with SS1?
I don't think we will reach to that point because no matter if I post something in Nation Chat, they're already cussing me out. If I say something nice, they're already cussing me out. I don't know, or they're saying something to ridicule me or saying some stupid thing. It's like the hate is so deep. There's no way to talk to them. Like if I come in and say, "Oh, I'm gonna forgive you for what you have done," they're not gonna believe me, and I wouldn't believe them either. It's that bad.
So essentially,
Maybe you guys need a mediator or something.
I don't
Yeah,
think there's such a thing with these people.
Yeah, no, I totally
if
understand.
SS1
And
got on board, would they actually be a good alliance? Like, would they actually give points to?
They
Nation?
have potential, to be honest. Like if they
Yeah.
can zero an EV1 player,
Yeah.
they can gather 31 to 46 people. They have the potential.
Yeah.
But they fail
true.
to cooperate. They just fail to cooperate. And honestly, I can't say much because I don't know the story. I don't know why they started to be like this. I just wish I knew. Even though it wouldn't matter, it wouldn't change the fact that they do what they do. But I still don't know the core reason why they're like this.
Yeah.
I think
probably
people
somebody's farm
just,
died.
or some people just don't want to be told what to do. No. They just think that they're above and beyond nation rules or whatever else.
A lot of
I
times, what
have
I've
one
seen.
last tip,
Sorry,
and
go
then
ahead.
I'll shut up. I promise.
Go ahead.
So I've found that if you can find somebody that speaks the language and they get on a phone call, that might help. You may not want to solve the issues with SS1, but if you're having a issue with an alliance or with the head of another alliance, if you can pick up the phone and call them, as long as you speak the same language or find somebody that can, it really does help because sometimes things do get lost in or nation
Translation.
chat and text and intentions. Don't talk when it's fresh, or it's raw. Go back after things kind of settle down to try that approach. And
I
that's
think
it. We're gonna shut up.
it's okay. I think for a nation, if you're trying to purge and you're trying to clean up your world, I think you firstly need to communicate with most leaders. Like I have everybody on board. Like, hey, we need change. Because let's say your nation is failing because you can't win. You keep losing. It would be better to communicate. I guess the key point is to communicate with the other alliances and just find a common ground. Like let's do these rules. And if let's say an alliance keeps failing those their rule, well, you burn them. But I guess if you start doing that and you burn everybody, because that I'm pretty sure you're gonna end up burning everybody. But if you see people putting the effort to make a change, then they can get chances. But sometimes people don't
No,
change. People don't listen. They just keep doing the same thing over and over again. And those are the type that you have to like kind of burn off the ground, like take them away because you can't change to those people.
so I think
Um,
Lum has a point. Like because the game is typewritten most of the time with comments. The intention, or you don't have the intention behind it because it can be read in so many different ways. So yeah, maybe Nikki should try talking to SS1.
no,
I think that boat has sailed. I don't think there's
that
any.
ship has sailed. If this was kind of fresh, if this was like a fresh issue, maybe there was potential. But now it's kind of like an old wound that keeps that. It's like when you cut yourself and then it's getting all that hard layer of skin and you scratch it and it's like, oh look, you're bleeding again, and then it get hard hitting itself again. It's kind of like that. Like one
I
day
feel
they're fine, the next day they're not, and it's like, I
I
don't
feel
think
like
there's
they
no
just
way.
put salt on your wounds.
Yeah. But I just wonder, Lumberg, after what happened with Boyd, do you have plans? Are you gonna change some things, or just waiting for the video to come out?
I am waiting for that video to come out, so you should hop on it.
I,
But
I should. Okay, you guys need to stop distracting me then.
yeah,
I took
I
a
will
break.
say
My
this,
mind was
that
blowing.
I will say this, that honestly, I've thought about it long and hard, and having a heavy-handed approach, kicking out a bunch of offenders or pointing fingers isn't going to solve our problems, right? So most people, that tried to do it did it out of effort, and so I do believe in second chances, but maybe not third. And then
Well,
all things
it's your
considered,
first
we
boy
did.
loss, right?
No, it's our second. We owe our
Oh,
first void loss to 219. Um, so
no. Well, with your new merge, first boy loss, right?
well, yeah. If you thanks for bringing that up. We are at 0% win rate since the merger. Thanks, Nikki. But
I'm
yes,
sorry.
uh, uh, thanks for bringing that up. But
Shots
yeah, I
fired.
mean, look, we went against 52, and 52 is at the top of the top for void. So I don't feel so bad. You know, did I think about like, hey, let's just find everybody that gave away points and try to burn them? Yes. Will that do anything? Absolutely not. So we're going to work through it. I thought about kicking out people that didn't show up, but this void was difficult, right? It was. I think Maddie said it was as normal. I don't think it was normal, but as of late, it does seem normal. But the lag was so bad for the first hour and a half, right? And like others were saying, a lot of your void plans are based on showing up at reset. So a lot of things kind of went by the wayside. So, but no, we're not scorching earth or anything. To
No,
answer your
I
question.
said the first 30 minutes were normal lag, and then it went into the depths of hell. Like it
Yeah.
went bad.
Yeah, I got pretty. All right,
Um,
guys.
I,
Well, anybody else want to add anything before I wrap this up?
No,
Good?
just one. Well, yeah, one last little thing
Sure.
is Lumberg did say that global conquest is a good way to get everybody on board after a merger. Um, and I actually saw that. I now have a new rival who I'm against in 522, and their merger was really crappy. It was completely divided between two alliances. But I think I've scared him to the point where he actually sucked it up and went to his nemesis. And they think that they're going to have a chance now because they're united.
Oh, interesting.
But he's going to die.
Yeah.
Dark Shadow.
The way that we've
Dark-
always seen it is global conquest is the best way for all your alliances to work together, and it is a big unifier, especially if you win. But for sure, I think Lumberg was right on that on global conquest.
Yeah, he's just going to be unified in death, and that's okay.
Also, Lumberg, I did not mean to put salt in your wound. I'm very sorry.
All right, I'm done.
All right, guys. Well, I appreciate everybody's time. Thanks for showing up. Johnny Ringo, thanks for coming in. And I will see you guys next time. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.